Delighted to introduce Ruth Edge, who is Chief Food Chain Advisor at the National Farmers Union. Welcome, Ruth, and over to you.
So my name is Ruth Edge. I'm the Chief Food Chain Advisor at the National Farmers Union for England and Wales. We are a representative membership organisation. We represent 55,000 farmers and growers within England and Wales. We are the largest farmer membership organisation within Europe. And I'm just going to touch on a little bit in terms of what we're seeing within the market, particularly from the retail perspective, and what that means in terms of how our farmers and growers are responding to it. As the National Farmers Union, we see net zero as absolutely crucial and a key sustainability aspect. We've made the ambition that we wish to see farmers within the UK and growers within the UK become net zero by 2040. Let's not underestimate that. That is an absolutely huge ambition to have, and something that is going to be quite challenging for our industry to achieve. But we'll touch a little bit more on that during my presentation. Apologies, I'm just having a little bit of problem with the clicker. Let's just keep going. There we go. So where we're seeing within the market is a huge ambition and huge targets being set by major multiples, by big branded businesses such as McDonald's. All of them are having sort of ambitions as to what they want to meet. And they've been working on this for a number of years. This isn't a recent thing, whether it be food waste, whether it be carbon reduction, whether it be reduction of plastics. We're seeing massive changes within the sustainability market and huge ambitions being made. What is quite different and what is a new sort of setup in terms of what we're seeing is an increased focus on scope 3 emissions. So why that particularly interests me is emissions from agriculture that is fed back to food would fall under the scope 3 emissions. So in the last 6 months, we've seen Tesco's commit to reduce that emissions within scope 3 by 17% by 2030, Sainsbury's by 30% by 2030, and most ambitious of all is Morrison's, who've committed that they will make 100% reduction in their farming carbon output by 2030. So the reason I mention this, it's not sort of explicit consumer data, but it shows that there is a move towards very much sort of understanding that sustainability and delivering for the customer. Ultimately, what retailers want to do is sell more product, get more people through their doors, and allow them to sell that. So therefore, they're going to deliver what the customer wants. And the customer is very much caring about this. I'm also going to touch a little bit in relation to diets, and the previous speaker sort of mentioned this about sort of people looking at diets in the round, and he was talking very much about accessibility of food. That's crucial. Sort of within a Western society, we seem to take a little bit of a different stance on it, particularly when we're talking about the aspects of sustainability. And certainly within there, what we've seen is people looking to decrease their meat consumption, or there's very much movement about this, whether it becoming vegan to save the planet, stop using dairy to save the planet. I've just put this slide up there to say, whilst we see all this momentum within the media and sort of activism and marketing and all that kind of thing, it's not necessarily translating into consumer insight data. So we're seeing 1 in 5 households looking at consciously reducing their meat. That's not to say they're becoming vegan or vegetarian. It just means to say they are looking at that and becoming a meat reducer. That's 1 in 5 households. So the vast majority, actually, this isn't even featuring in terms of their landscape. Less than 2% of our population within the UK are what they would classify themselves as vegan. The data also shows even those that classify themselves as vegan are known to have the sneaky bacon sandwich or latte when they're out, or whatever it might be. So it's just to put up there that whilst looking at diet as part of the mix, actually in terms of what individuals are prepared to do in their own sphere and how much they want to impact their own behaviour, it is kind of a balanced picture, really. And I'll just move on to my next slide. Just bear with me 2 seconds. So I'll put this slide up to sort of show why customers would want to change their behaviour and what aspects are important to them. So you'll see 2 columns within there, the orange column, which is meat reducers, and the green column, which is those that are sort of emitting meat from their diet, and meat excluders, as you were. So for meat excluders, animal welfare is the _1 reason why that they would reduce that within their diet. It's not environment. Environment is a strong #2, but animal welfare is the area that is featuring most strongly in there. And in terms of those meat reducers, it's about health, it's about diet, it's about what impacts them as an individual. Again, environment is a strong #2 and sustainability is important, but this is not the only sort of effect that is driving this area. And what is that doing to the market? What are we actually seeing in terms of what our farmers are producing and how that might be being eroded by other areas? So in terms of meat alternatives account for less than 2% of the market and have a household penetration which has actually been down year on year by 0.7. So less people are buying meat alternatives in terms of household in the last year than they have been previously to that. What that sort of indicates is that that's probably coming a little bit from the COVID effect, where people are wanting more of a kind of eating out experience at home, perhaps spending less time in retailers, less willing to sort of shop new products, whatever it might be. On the flip side, if we look at the dairy sector and the dairy alternatives, actually these products have seen huge growth. So they've seen they account for just nearly 5% of the market, and we've seen nearly a 30% increase in those on a year-on-year basis. That is absolutely huge in terms of that market. Cynically, I would say it's probably they're delivering on taste, texture, quality. Actually, people like to have that and equally feel like they're doing something good for the environment. It's win-win. They're delivering on taste, and also they feel like it's better for them in terms of health and environmental aspects. Moving ahead. So if we look at sustainability as a whole and what's happening, what is it important to consider and what are my members primarily concerned about? So we need to consider all aspects of sustainability. As I said, as the NFU, we've committed to this carbon target, and we see that as very fundamental to securing British agriculture future. However, what we need to ensure is that carbon isn't looked at in isolation. There's so many different aspects in terms of sustainability, whether it be biodiversity, whether it be water quality. We need to ensure that all of these are looked at in the round and that we're not just focusing on one single lens solution. We also need to ensure that we're not generalising. So by that, I mean in terms of production, there is so many different types of production methods out there and so many different ways of producing both meat and dairy. So for example, within the dairy sector, there's 278 million cows that produce our dairy worldwide. If we were to use the production level of UK cows and the efficiency of UK cows, we'd only need 76 million. That is a massive reduction. Within the UK, we're very fortunate to live in a climate where we're able to grow grass very, very effectively. I don't know what the weather's doing with everybody today. It's absolutely hammering down outside my window here. And we're really good at converting that water into grass. So we need to consider where we're best placed to produce these these products across the world. As a worldwide nation, and we heard the previous speakers speak about this, we are continuing to move as we become wealthier within third countries. We are continuing to increase our consumption in terms of meat and dairy. Actually, is the UK really well placed to produce some of that in terms of our environment and our efficiencies we've got within there? The sort of third and final point I sort of got on this slide is around the demonisation of certain food groups. So as I sort of said at the beginning, particularly meat has come under, significant fire in terms of its carbon emissions in its production potential within there. However, what we are seeing is that certain swathes of the population are massively under-nutriented. So for example, if you take teenage girls, their micronutrient contents of their diet, in particular in relation to iron, generally is hugely below what the recommended levels are. Now, for our own health and our own ability to grow as a nation, that's worrying. One of the most important, most effective ways to access that iron is for people to eat meat. So I'm not saying it's a must, and there are certainly ways in which that can be accessed within diets generally. However, that if we're then giving teenage girls that message, that is incredibly worrying. There's other examples in there with a similar kind of situation. What we need to learn to do is eat a balanced, sustainable diet in the round rather than demonizing certain food groups. That is absolutely crucial to our future. So sort of starting at where I began, net zero. Why have we as the NFU committed to become net zero within agriculture by 2040? It's absolutely crucial to our future. Our farmers need to be able to deliver that, to be the advocates of the industry that customers want them to be, and to be sort of forward-looking. Our farmers are really up for this. They're really keen to engage. They're really keen to learn what they can be doing and what it means. We're also really individually placed in terms of agriculture in a really unique way, in that we can capture carbon and we can utilise carbon within the soil, and we can actually become carbon sinks, reducing the effect on the environment. Although we are large emitters of carbon at the same time, we're obviously looking to reduce that. But there are very few other places within the supply chain that are placed to be able to embed that carbon whilst also emitting it. So it's a substantial opportunity for our members. So how will that be achieved? Apologies, I'm just having slight clicker issues again. We've identified 3 key pillar areas in terms of the way in which members will achieve that. The first is around productivity and reducing emissions. So that is looking at ways in which we can cut carbon within production as it currently stands. So the picture I put up there in pillar 1 on the red picture is a slurry injector. So if farmers are using slurry injectors, they are directly putting that slurry into the ground, and therefore the carbon is not entering the atmosphere. That is a real simple technique, but has a substantial input, a substantial difference in terms of the output of carbon that farm is producing. There are hundreds of little tiny production examples that farmers could be doing to be reducing their emissions. What we need to do is start to get some education out there and to get some accessibility to technology for farmers to be able to do that. Productivity is also a key aspect within that pillar 1 as well. If I'm able to reduce more from less inputs, that is substantial, and again will be a key focus area for us. Pillar 2, the green pillar we've got up there, carbon storage. So looking at increasing hedgerows, increasing sort of wild meadows, increasing trees on farm. All of these things are options for our members in order for them to be becoming carbon net zero. And then the third and final pillar we've got within there, the purple one, is a little bit more sort of stretching and a little bit more looking at the future. So within there, we've got solar panels and sort of renewable energies, which we're probably all quite accustomed to. There's also sort of striving aspects looking to the future that will be reliant on technology. So there's certain minerals and caps within there that farmers could be using to embed more carbon within the soil. At the moment, that technology is really early days, and we're expecting that to come to fruition in the next 10 to 15 years. But we see that as a substantial opportunity. So looking sort of on from there, so what do farmers need to achieve this? You know, farmers are quite basic beings, and sometimes it can be challenging to change their behaviour. However, they need to change in the situation we currently are in. So capability, we need data, we need advice, we need evidence within there to show farmers what is needed. We need training, we need skills, we need motivation. How can farmers save money? How can they sort of ensure they're fit for the future? Do there need to be incentives in there within the supply chain? Do we need to sort of put in place more press, more peer pressure, more kind of advocates, that kind of side of things? And then opportunity, you know, is there the opportunity for policy change to incentivize this? Do we need more demonstrations? Do there need to be grant funding for farmers to be able to move quicker and faster on this? All of these areas are areas that we are looking at as the National Farmers Union and lobbying on to try and be effective for our farmers to be able to produce the ambition that we've set. And then sort of moving on from there, what that previous graph I've put up doesn't really show is partnership and cooperation. So at the beginning of this presentation, we obviously started with the retailers, started with the big brands in terms of their ambition. They can't deliver that without farmers on the ground doing their bit. So it is absolutely key that the whole of the supply chain are working together on this, and that is drilling right back down to farm. And there's an understanding as to why customers want this, why customers need this, what they're prepared to pay for, what they're not prepared to pay for, and might have to come from other revenue streams. And farmers need to sort of challenge policymakers to be able to do that. This partnership and cooperation is absolutely key as well, because when we're looking at sustainability issues, often they have a very long-term lead time. So farmers need some security for the future to deliver on those farming sustainability credentials. And then sort of lastly, in terms of my take-home messages we've got there. So what I wanted to sort of get across to you today was customers absolutely have an interest in this. You can look at every customer data under the sun, but you just look at the sort of direction of the branded companies and big corporates to see that customers and shoppers absolutely care passionately about this. Dietary change is not the sole answer. It might be part of the answer, and certainly we need to be looking at whether we should be eating more to a daily recommended levels that have been set, but equally we shouldn't be demonising one food over another. Farmers have taken up this challenge. As I said right at the beginning, this challenge that we've set to be net zero by 2040 is incredibly ambitious. That is, going to take some going to sort of to push forward and achieve. Everyone is still learning on this journey. This is something that I've come across very quickly. Nobody's got the silver bullet answer. Nobody's got a sole solution. Actually, we're all learning together, and it's important that we work together to achieve that and to do our best to improve sustainability in the delivery of food for our customers and shoppers. Thank you very much.